His was a 1987 Porsche 944 base. He bought it in June of 2021 and he got it for free. I want to try explaining why our first cars are our favorite, because they're almost always junk. They're always trash. There's like 1,000 people in the Discord now, and I asked them, I wanted to hear their stories on their first car and what made it special for them. So come along with me as I pull a couple of stories out of this, which if you did have a chance to add your story, that meant a lot to me. It was so crazy to read these stories and I can't wait to share them, which by the way, I'm AlexMartini on Instagram, and you can find me over there. And also we're doing March Martini Madness, where I'm posting every single day, Monday through Friday, in hopes for the whole month that I don't know. I don't really know why I'm doing it. It just kind of feels fun and exciting. So we're doing new content, which by the way, if you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe. That is the one thing I am asking from everyone during this month, because it does help me continue to grow. So let's jump into one of the stories that I thought was really cool. And his name is Tax. His first car was a 1991 Integra GS in factory red that he bought last year for $3,500. And what made this story so special for this specific situation is because the car that he bought was the same exact car that his dad had when he was a kid. And when they were looking at the car and they were trying to figure out if they wanted to buy it or not, his dad actually was deciding if he should just go out and buy it himself, because it brought back so many memories. He talked about how his dad would tell him stories about how he kind of like ran from the cops and he did all sorts of his firsts in that car, which is such a cool thing to me. And so when Tax actually got the car back and he went to go for a drive, he brought his dad with. And one of the coolest things about this story is that when he ended up buying it and the whole 2 hours to get back home, his dad drove it. He was super happy about this. They ended up taking the car on the same road trip that he did when he was younger. They did it together, which is so neat. And when you look at this car, it's an incredibly good looking car. 5,000 CAD, $3,500. And one of the things that I always think is really cool when we look at our firsts, right? Our first love. That for Tax, you know, it was because of family. The car was special because his dad had stories of the same car. A lot of times our first cars are special, which by the way, I would love to hear your stories. If you're watching this, go down in the comment section, tell me your first car story. What did you buy? When did you buy it? And why was it special for you? Anyway, let's go into the next one. Tala, a 2005 Mazda 6 S Sport. Now he bought this in August of 2011. Here's something I thought was really cool, was it was given as a gift, but when he was young, before he had even any inclination on what he wanted a car to be, and when his parents got it when he was 13 years old, he thought it was a sports car. He thought it was a sports car because the car came with a wing and the car was green. That made it pretty much an exotic. That was his ride home from late night events. It moved him and everything that he owned up to Maine to live for 2 years, and held on to those dried French fry stubs left by friends years ago. Almost all of my friends have ridden in this car, including one that passed away. And a lot of times when we look at cars that we've managed to keep for a long time, and I think Tala has really hit this on the head, it was a lot of like our firsts. We went through life with this vehicle. And when we kind of turn into car people, I think it gets a little bit more special. If you're not a car person, sometimes it's just a means to an end. It's just a vehicle, it's nothing more. But a lot of times when you enjoy it just a touch more, you start to realize how special the car is because of the memories and the experiences that it gave you. And it's so cool to hear that, because for Tala, it kind of sounds like it was a way to experience new memories. That was very similar to what my story is, but we'll get to the end. Now, this is a cool one, because when I asked, usually I was expecting some really weird, kind of ugly, basic cars. Nothing special. I wasn't expecting anyone to come out and say that their first car was an Aston Martin or a Ferrari. But for FloppaGaming, who's been on this before, his was a 1987 Porsche 944 base. He bought it in June of 2021, so not even 2 years ago. And he got it for free. And it's pretty much returned him into a Porsche fanboy. Now, here's what's crazy is that he didn't just get it from, you know, a family member or something like that. The owner, who had a collection of projects, including a 928 and DeLorean, got tired of having it sit out on her driveway for 14 years. The deal that she made with Floppa was that if he could restore it and drive it back to his house off of her property, he could keep it as is for free. He got access to her lift and tools, and a year-long plus process began. So whoever this person is that had these cars obviously had other cars, and it's even cooler that it was a female that was like kind of almost like amping this person up to see if they could do it. He got into the story on how he had it for so long, got involved in multiple hit and runs, got stolen. It adds to the character of the car, gave me the experience needed to keep it running. As he worked on it, he found even more stuff, like how cool the seats were and how the previous owners spray painted the tan interior black. The 40-mile drive back in my own restored project was breathtaking and allowed me to fully appreciate what I had. That's such a cool story. Like, that's a story you tell your kid. That's a story that you talk about when your kid's trying to find their first car. LancimusPrime brought a 1994 Probe GT2. Very interesting car to pick up as a first car, okay? Bought it for $3,000 in November of 2005. Like many 16-year-old fanboys, he wanted a sporty car for his first car, and his dad refused to let him buy a Fiero GT because of the Minnesota winters. Pop up and down headlights. And call me crazy, he said, but an extremely underrated interior. Now, Probe GTs are a really weird car because they're front wheel drive, they're made by Ford. Mustang ultimately killed it, even though the Ford Probe was supposed to be the succession of a lot of what the Mustang was back in the day. But they made it wrong wheel drive, and over time, it just never really hit into a market. Now, the Probe GT was specifically built for a lot of key demographics in mind, some of which it was actually specifically developed for female enthusiasts. There's a lot of really cool history in the Ford Probe GT and its attempt to create a vehicle that wasn't just feminine because they wanted to capture a female market. They legitimately made it like ergonomic for female enthusiasts to drive the car without it taking away from anybody from experiencing a Ford Probe GT. But anyway, he ended up putting up some parts in it. But what he said was the most exciting was that when he was just getting into cars, before the days of Facebook, he was in the forums, more specifically the Minnesota Probe Owners Club. Made legitimate friends who came out to help an idiot kid like myself install a new clutch and flywheel. If you have a place where you can ask stupid questions and not be ridiculed for it, you're going to love your car that much more. Totally agree. One of the reasons we even started Wisconsin Car Enthusiast Club here in 2012 was because of that very same thing, because nobody wants to be an idiot, but people have dumb questions. So how do you make us like a safe space for it? And that's so cool. Sometimes our very first car is what introduces us to a community of people. And a lot of times those people guide us into the adults that we become. You know, for me, I had a 1989 Mercedes-Benz 300E. I got it for $3,000 from my parents as long as I maintained A's. I had window tint on it. I thought I was the coolest kid in the world. It had a bad carburetor that I learned how to fix. But one of the things that it taught me was how to express myself. It was my very first real attempt at like allowing me to live in a world where I could be who I wanted to be. And being in a car was such a cool experience for me because I could go and explore and try new things and go to new places and do new stuff. And people saw the car and they related the car to me. And that for me was so special. I couldn't paint, couldn't sing, couldn't dance, couldn't play the trumpet. What I could do is I could figure out how to modify cars because I am not a mechanic and I am not good. But what I did love is that other people also loved cars. And if I could create a community of those people that loved cars, then hopefully I could make a couple friends. And I did. And a lot of the people that are around my life now are the same people that were around 11 years ago when they were helping me with the stupid questions that I had when I was trying to build my very first Datsun 280Z. So I would love to hear your stories in the comment section below. Why did you love your first car so much? Why are they so special? I think for me, it just comes down to being the main reason that you get to experience so many firsts in life. And a lot of times a car is the reason for that. But I'm Alex, AlexMartini with 2 underscores on Instagram, and we will see you later. Adios. Don't forget to subscribe.